She went over every detail of the apothecary, every herb and its name tucked away in the drawers or hanging to dry, every pre-made potion and what they're for and their cost, every tool and instrument, reminding me the best practices to use them, and of course all the tomes and recipes for herbalism and potion craft. I think we were both nervous. This was the first time she was leaving the shop since I started my apprenticeship. When she felt she was satisfied as she could be, my mentor picked up her bags and walked to the door. She turned with a warm smile, saying, "Remember to mind the customer's needs. Check the bottles first if it's already made, and if not, make sure you reference the books. I'll only be gone a week. Try not to bring down the whole place while I'm gone." Then she turned and stepped out the door, the ringing of the bells as it swung open and shut. And there I stand behind the counter, hands on the top of the table, nervous smile on my lips, waiting as the first silhouette comes into view against the doorway.
All right, I believe we are live. Unless we're live on Twitch. I'm trying to get YouTube going. It seems to be a little buggy, so if I am not live on YouTube and the video isn't there, we will post the VOD later. All right, hi everybody. Hello, Fays and Fiends. Welcome to another solo tabletop session here, a very special one. Today we are playing a very fun new game, one that hasn't come out yet. This is actually a preview of a game to come out. The game is called Apothecaire's Apprentice. It is by Lionne Publishing, and she used my art pack for this game. So all the art that you will see on the Kickstarter and through the PDFs and books and such is art that I've done. So I'm super excited to help promote this game and to help share it with you all, as well as get into a little bit of the current state of play for the game here. Of course, with this being an early preview, things could change as this game gets play tested and feedback is given to the designer, Anya. So what happens tonight here in this video may not be the final product. So if you are interested in more about this game and the journey, make sure you check out the Kickstarter. I brought it up in our Twitch chat here, but the game is called The Apothecaire's Apprentice if you want to look it up, or just click on the Kickstarter. And of course, for the VOD on YouTube later, the link will be in the description down below. And yeah, of course, you know, if you look up Lionne Cosplay on Twitter, Blue Sky, maybe Instagram, I'm trying to remember of all the places she's at, but if you want more information, you can look up Lionne Cosplay or find Lionne Publishing for other games and such, as I also did the cover for Tea and Toadstools last time, the last game that she released, so yay! Lots of fun stuff here. So yeah, this is a more cozy sort of game, definitely in line with some games I have done before around potion crafting, herbalism, alchemy, all that sort of more earth-based, healing-based witchery stuff. So I'm excited to give this a first sort of look and play here. I've done some little pre-setup, so I have written out what my character's about, and I have some of my tools. So let us walk through this early preview of the book. Again, my art is all through it, so this is very exciting for me. I love seeing it. It's actually a free art pack, so you can go on my Ko-Fi, Itch, or find me on DriveThruRPG and get it yourself. See what you can come up with. Will you make a game too? Will you do something else? Who knows? So first and foremost, what you need to know is that this is a 1 to 2 player tabletop game about creation and collaboration. So even though I am playing it solo tonight, you could always have another person play with you. Our setup essentially is this. We have a deck of playing cards with the jokers shuffled in the deck. And I am playing with one of my favorite decks to use when I'm doing something a little more kind of potion-y and stuff is my Cabinetrium. Don't know if you can see it on that camera. I may have to do it to my phone one, which was given to me by my friends at Knave of Cups, so check out Knave of Cups. Very beautiful deck. Actually, my camera phone is looking great right now. I'll shuffle it again, but every card has different art on it, which is what I love about it. Cabinet of Curiosities themed. So I feel like I haven't seen all the cards yet, so that'll be fun to see if we get any more cards to pop up that I can get in here. So let me get music coming back here. We got a little bubbling. Aha. So that is the card. So your full deck with jokers shuffled in. I have just out of sight here, little dice tray with a D8 and a D4. Need those for the times we have to roll, which I'll explain in a second. And a way to journal, of course, all your things. So I have a piece of paper in front of me. As we will be recording sort of the potions you make and the customers that come in for them. There are going to be sheets. There is a character sheet. There is a sheet for customers, and there will be a sheet about the cottage in which you operate out of. Let me go through. So our next page here, we got mechanics. It sort of discusses what each of the different aspects are. So for customers, you roll a d4 per day to determine how many customers you get in a day. And of course, the more customers you have, the more rushed your work becomes to complete your customers' orders on time. And with those rules, of course, once you roll your dice, you roll the number from your deck. So if you roll a 4 on your d4, you pull 4 cards from your deck. The jokers and why they are important. These cards donate extremely difficult customers. It will provide an added complication to the mix. So, yay, my former retail years are already sweating. Potion making utilizes both the D4 and the D8 to discover what the requests of the customers are and how successful we are in undertaking it. So definitely a lot of random actions here. There's still going to be, you know, the story you build around it and the interpretations, but you do have some more dice on whether what you've done is successful or not. And yeah, journal. Now the phases of play, as written here, other than all the stuff you need for your logbook, there is building your character. So in our beginning, we build our character, which I have mine already pre-built ahead of the stream and video, so I'll get into that in a moment. The cottage in which we live in and operate out of, and the customers, which we describe as we pull from the deck and get our prompts. So that is the general phases of gameplay, and we do that for about a week or 7 days, so we'd be doing 7 draws, essentially. So first, character building. At the start of every session, we will take some time to think about our apprentice, answering the following questions. There is a character sheet, which I answered to. So, the character I'm playing today is Deandra Sage. She has been apprenticing for 6 months. And the reason she started into being an apothecaire is that her grandmother used to be a herbalist. So she had a lot of fascination and memories that she does have of her grandmother being in the household and smelling the herbs and all the kind of things that her grandmother would do. Her grandmother did pass before Deandra entered adulthood. So she felt sort of a compulsion to follow through on becoming an apothecaire, as she wanted to maintain those memories and feel connected to her grandmother, and keep sort of like that thread of her heart. Now, things that sort of inspire her outside of the reasoning for why she followed this path. She loves, that sort of small, localized ecosystems. She was always fascinated seeing like the bugs and the birds and mammals in the gardens, developing the sort of pathways and garden ways to support the ecosystems that are local. She loves just general garden work. Always, of course, helped her grandmother, helped her mother maintain gardens and such. And just sort of the rhythmic ritualness of it is calming to her. Now, for what she looks like, she has very long, sort of gingery hair that she keeps up in a clean bun with a few sort of loose strands around her face. She wears a lot of earth tones, a lot of greens and kind of creamy whites and off-color whites, beiges, browns. Generally, she has a white sort of under tunic with a green over tunic on, and wears a beigey sort of apron when she's working. And has it very cleanly tied, lots of like inner skirts, layers of skirts all ruffled in linen. She has lots of freckles on her face, keeps her nails short, but her nails are actually quite well. She uses a lot of oils and stuff that come off of the apothecary work, the herbal, like grinding of herbalisms and making oils and such. Sometimes if she has any residue, she'll dab them onto her cuticles and make them nice and fresh and moisturize. Now, there is a secret as an apprentice that I know about my apothecary. About my mentor, whose name is Astrid Morium. And Miss Morium is actually quite afraid of her craft being lost. I learned through a letter that was sort of left out in the open one day, one that she was going to send and was in the middle of writing, but she had expressed her fears being the last sort of her family and having no children of her own, that she would be sort of the end of this line and that all of her knowledge and lore and stories could be lost. So she's really hoping everything works out with Deandra so that those stories and that knowledge and her memories centered around potion crafting can continue on through Deandra. All right. So with our character, we now jump on to our cottage, our place in which we live and work. So first, where is the cottage? I kind of imagine the cottage is sort of is on the outskirts of town, just down the road, over the bridge or across the bridge that goes over the stream, and it is a mountain stream. So there's sort of a backdrop of snow-capped mountains, tall green pines, so very fresh air here. And this cottage, very simple. The front of it, sort of that stone and woodwork with some plaster. A big wide door, painted bright pine green, big rounded windows in the front. It almost looks like it's sort of, the front was once an old house and then there was an extension of a new building attached to it. So the front looks very sort of rustic. There is a sign hanging off it, just very simply and clear script paint. It says the Apothecary. Very simple. There's no official name or anything. It's just the Apothecary. And that's the front of it. And then the back of it just looks more like a log cabin. built up in 2 stories. So the cottage has, or the front cottage has that built where the store is into the rest of the log house, where the apothecary and the log house share that sort of kitchen area, and then the rest of the cottage for a living of the apothecary's workers, which is essentially the mentor and the apprentice. Now, is there any secrets behind the facade? Well, I like to imagine there is a secret cellar for sure. One that tends to keep, maybe not necessarily, what is the words I'm thinking of? Not necessarily bad things, like there is like a place for growing mushrooms down there. But there is another sort of more paneled off room that maintains more dangerous materials that need to be kept at cooler temperatures. Or simply out of reach and out of sight of any tempting customers or whoever else may be trying to ask for more dangerous concoctions. What is the layout of the cottage's garden from which we pull our herbs and such from? So with what I described is very much an L-shaped I'm envisioning for the cottage itself. So in that section at the front where you get that L shape, there is the larger, like a good sizable portion of the garden that everyone can see that has the cross kind of driftwood, almost like old wood fencing along it. And that's where a lot of the really big, there's a mix of big bushier herbs, there's lavender, there's a lot of smaller ones like coriander, there's some sage, there's rosemary, chamomile, and daffodil, just your variety of things. And then it gets into some others that may seem odd. You got your standard that comes with like cooking and tea, but then there's some other ones where, unless you truly know the properties that they offer, can seem odd. There is a lot of different trees around too. There's birch, willow, and some more flowering and fruit ones, a lot of seed ones as well. Just a small orchard that's sort of in the back of the cottage. And again, there's other flower beds that, or vegetable beds, whatever is needed. As well as, you know, with the vegetable beds, food for the apothecary that, you know, maybe they don't want to go in town every day. It's just nice to have your own food growing back there. How many rooms are there in this cottage? Actually, no, let me finish the last one. So who maintains it? Well, it would be the apprentice now, as well as the owner, the apothecary. It grows in abundance. What grows in abundance in the garden? Well, I said the herbs grow well. As I said, there's varying fruit-bearing and nut-bearing trees. There's some that are kept inside, especially in the colder weather. So any like these small lemon trees, anything that's able to be kept like that, the lavender gets brought in. Other herbs are able to be either potted or other methods to maintain them. What struggles to grow? What struggles to grow? Well, being mountain area and sort of airy. I imagine a lot of the lower, kind of low to earth plants do well, but anything that tries to reach high has a harder time and struggles a bit more. I'm trying to think of what kind of plants that would be. So I'm not picturing this almost like British Columbia, Rocky Mountains sort of area, like Banff or something, but like fantasy, medievalish Banff. Maybe the lavender does struggle a little bit, which is why we have to bring it inside so often or earlier than other plants. All right, now, how many rooms are in the cottage? Well, On the outside, the place seems like it would be a little small. But going in, we got, you know, that front room that I described where there is that space of, you got your desk, the front desk. There is counters on the side with drawers and additional desks. So when myself or my mentor move around, we're always sort of behind a desk to keep ourselves separated from the customer, so that when we're pulling out herbs and stuff, a customer isn't able to just reach over and try and, you know, get the herbs themselves. They have to interact with us directly. And this is just to maintain our supply, so that we can measure out and mark down anything that may be running out, as well as make sure no one is grabbing things that they should not grab, as though the dangerous things are behind glass. There's always a chance if we ever had opened a cabinet and turned our back, someone could reach in. So there's that very much classic oldies like medicine shop. So all the cabinetry with the drawers, lots of plants as well, potted plants. So additional, like, there's drying flowers and herbs from the ceilings along the sides or in the windows. There's additional things like catnip, dill, like all the various sort of smells of these things filling this front store. And going in from the back and leaving sort of that store section is more of sort of the kitchen, as I said, where the cottage that turned to shop meets the new wood cottage. The kitchen section is there. That way, if we ever have to do larger batches of potion making or require additional tools that we tend to keep in the kitchen, we're able to run back there. But anyways, that's our kitchen. And then going off into that now L-shaped section, there is a stairway that goes up into a loft space that has the bedrooms. So there was just one big sort of master bedroom that now got split into two, so that my mentor has one and I have one. And then just in that stairway hall, there is just turned into a space of a study and some storage. So not a whole lot of room in this cottage. There is sort of a secret little nestled hideaway underneath the stairs. There's no door that signals that there is anything, but you're able to kind of press on the side of it and it'll pop it open. That's where we tend to keep a lot more of the valuables in there. To be honest, in my head, I'm almost picturing the house from Whiterun in Skyrim that you can get, like the first house you can get in Skyrim. Almost have that kind of picture, but that's like the wood cabin, and then there's the cottage part that is the store. So we can imagine Skyrim house from Whiterun, but off, like, extension is that delightful little shop. So my apprentice's favorite location in or around the cottage, I think our favorite location, would be through sort of the winding pathways of gardens in the back. She likes where the willow tree is because it overlooks a small sort of pond area, and that's where we're able to grow more of the water sort of herbs and plants that we can utilize, as well as more water-based foods. So there's that big kind of silverly leafed willow tree that most of it arcs over the pond. There's some bushes around, some varying berry bushes. The pond has a lot of, like, there's different rocks along the edges as well as sticking up in the center. Filled with various life, so we always get visiting frogs and toads, lots of dragonflies because they like to eat up any mosquitoes that happen upon our area. And we made a really nice sitting area. So there's that sort of iron-made 2-seater bench, so it's very intricate with swoops in its design. Not super high back. And then a wooden planks that make up the seating part that we like to put down cushions just to help soften it. And we turned one of the stones. There was one really large stone that we carved out to make sort of like a table of sorts, like a little side table that we can place stuff on. And then on the other side, there is a old tree root, like stump from a tree that had to be removed. And that's now been also carved and maintained as another either seat or put stuff down on. And it isn't too far away from there that we do have like a little fire pit. Sometimes we like to, especially in the warmer months or even winter, we've done it winter as well, where we set up a fire and just enjoy our time amongst nature, admiring the garden we worked so hard on. And that is our cottage. So now it's about time we get into play and see how Deandra does while her mentor Astrid is away. So as described in that opening video, our mentor has taken the week to go on a journey. And we have that week to maintain the shop and help any customers that come by. Now, during this week-long adventure of being a apothecaire and maintaining the store, not only will we be meeting customers, both new, maybe familiar locals, maybe unexpected individuals, we'll also be learning more about the world that exists here. So as we take care of our customers each day, we'll be flipping back to a page here that I have open called The Local Environs and Lore, where we answer some questions. So that is something you can expect as we move forward. So first and foremost, let us roll a d4 as we come into our first day. Astrid had just left. We opened the store, put an open sign, and flipped it. And I am now present behind the counter, sort of very anxious, nervous energy, keeping everything clean and tidy. And the moment anything seems even the slightest out of place, I just go over and adjust it. Oh, 4. 1, 2, 3. So, let us start our day. So as I am fiddling with the store, making sure everything is clean and maintained and proper, a merchant happens by. I see them coming up through the window with a small wooden cart drawn by a mule. I can see a pile of crates and bags on the back. But they stop their mule and come forward. And with a push on or opening of the door, they come on in. And our first impressions, which is where our D8 come in. 1. They have a very joyous expression on them. A very happy, joyous energy. And, you know, they're sort of dressed, you know, the typical traveling wear, you know, a coat, their hair kind of cropped to their head, rounded cheeks, a big rounded nose. Obviously started early in his day. I can hear just sort of like the subtle calls of the donkey behind him as the door closes and he approaches the counter. And I smile and greet him as usual, be like, hello, welcome to the Apothecary. How may I help you? He approaches like, lass, I'm just coming into town, but I'm realizing I am in need of something. One as well. I think I'm just nervous about making sales in this town. It has been pretty rough, but you know, I'm trying to keep a positive and optimistic outlook on it all. Well, Les, you wouldn't happen to have any sort of enchanted thing that could, I don't know, maybe like improve my charisma or, you know, anything of that sort? Well, hey, okay. We definitely have a lot of things, so let me look over. I'm pretty sure I can come up with something for you. As he sort of converse a little bit, trying to see what I can find amongst anything that could already be made. I realize that maybe things that are very, you know, what's the word? I guess nuanced, may be hard to find in the pre-made potions. So, I open our recipe tome. It's well worn over generations of use and additions. And I find what I can. So, yeah. Back above table to explain the mechanics here. You saw that I drew a card, and I did roll, which gave me the customer's mood, as well as, which is with a D8. And that gave me a first impression. And not only is it joyful, but it's looking for some sort of common ingredient. And then I did my other roll, which was to determine what they are requesting. Which rolled again, rolled one. That is our enchantment potion. Now, there is always a potential for complications, so this is what happens as I'm sort of mulling about the recipes and looking over what herbs are available. I rolled a 2. So there's a complex ingredient that I am missing. So though I have a common ingredient, and I guess to help calm the nerves, I pick out chamomile as something common I can use. But I realize one of the ingredients that I need, a more complex portion of it that creates the true base that allows that chamomile to really sit and engulf the energies, is missing. And it's a type of kind of secretion that comes out of a plant. So it may take some time. So I offer the merchant to take a seat, and I set up some already made tea. It's just a standard, another sort of chamomile tea, and I explained to him that this will be the sort of taste you may expect from the potion that I'm going to make for him. However, we are out of one of the rare ingredients that I need for this particular potion. So I just need to go around the garden and see if I can locate it. So I pull out one of my precious items, which is a blade that was given to me by my grandmother before her passing. One that I use quite a bit to help cut into a plant and siphon out fluids and such as needed. So I gather up some of my tools and head out, grabbing that missing rare ingredient. And it's a little tricky. I find that this ingredient is off of one of the more prickly plants. So I get a lot of little pricks and thorns stuck into me as I'm trying very hard to be careful to not damage the plant as well as get what I need out of it. And I return inside. And now I get to roll to see if it is a success or a failure. So, let's see. A2. That's a failure with mixed results. Ooh. So maybe it was just my nerves. Now, this is my first customer without Astrid present to help correct me if I make any mistakes. I didn't realize I may have taken too much of the secretion and created a base that's a little more, not necessarily toxic, but definitely a bite to it. And the chamomile taste almost sours a little bit. And yeah, the merchant, you know, once the potion is made, it's burned a little too long. And he tries to take it, like, oh, the tastes nothing like the tea. And sort of, okay, my apologies. It is a very delicate process. And I try not to delve into all the issues that could have gone wrong, but this man just needs some confidence in his day. So I just try my best to turn around and I say, well, that could mean a number of things. If you're getting that more sour taste, it could just mean that your taste buds aren't there, that maybe one of the ingredients is interacting wrong, but you will feel confidence in no time that you got that sales pitch down. You got the product to sell. It is going to be a great day for you. And the man sort of nods, goes, oh, all right, if you say so. I'm just seeing there's a list of other potions. He wanted specifically enchantment potions, so let me see what enchantment I tried to do was. 3. The Strength of Titans is a potion that bestows unparalleled physical strength and endurance. Okay, I'll remember to roll on these for the next one. Emotional strength, maybe being able to move his boxes and stuff to set up. Looking for that kind of thing. For this, no. I'll say, because I didn't get to roll for it, I kind of described what he was looking for. It'll be the silver tongue serum that I messed up on. So it's a very silver liquid within the vial. That's supposed to help with being persuasive in your speech for a short amount of time. So he got a little bit of a sip there. So just say, try it again before you talk to anybody. You may feel a bit of numbness. That's okay. Just continue on and you'll be good. And as he walks out, I'm just like, oh goodness. Okay, good thing he's not, you know, he's kind of a nomadic merchant. Don't have to worry, I'm sure. Everything will be okay. All right. So with that customer, got our next one. And I'm just reading the lore here. So let's answer a local environment lore as he walks out the door, gets back in the seat of his cart with his donkey. I'm chewing away at the grasses across the road and now continues on to go over the bridge and into the village. Some notable locations nearby, other than the village itself, there is a path that leads to a sort of pass that goes into the mountains. There was a ancient ruined structure there that sort of arches over, almost making it seem like a tunnel of arches along the way. And off to the sides are signs of buildings and such, but it all has crumbled away and been overtaken by various ivies and plants. Some say a lot of the local gnomes sort of have come into the space after the people have moved on and taken housing. Which is why some people point to the mushrooms that grow there and be like, oh, those were placed there by the gnomes. Don't pick them. All right, our next one. 7 of diamonds. So it's not too long after that a painter comes into the shop. And this painter, my first impression of them is that they are kind of wretched looking. They're very, looks like they've been overwhelmed with life, very tired. Maybe they've gone digging around in the woods for materials to turn into paint pigments or what have you. Clothes just amuck, is when there's no dirt, there's a lot of paint. And they sort of come in very exhaustingly. They immediately take up one of the cups of tea. And I go through my usual greeting of, well, hello, how can I help you? What are you in need of? And they sort of turn around with a glazed kind of stare and they say, I keep rolling the same numbers for things. That they... Oh, miss, yeah, I thought the apothecary, you're the assistant, right? And I know, I was like, okay. Do you happen to have a health potion on hand? I think I may, if you can, it shows like a lot of the bruising on their arms and such. Like, I've been rummaging around trying to find new materials I could turn into pigments for inspiration for a new painting, but I got myself hurt. Kind of fell down one of the embankments. Say, all right, give me a moment. Let me see. That should be easy enough to do for you. And start looking about. A basic health potion is available, but they may need something a little bit more than just that. What is the health potion? They specifically require... Need a D4. They require a vitality potion. So a potion that rejuvenates the body, accelerates the body's natural healing process when one is ill. Replenishing lost energy and balancing fatigue. Yes. Yes, as I kind of listen to the painter's explanation of like how they're feeling, and even just from the first appearance, vitality potion makes sense. So I pulled together the different ingredients as I realize what it is this painter needs most. So let me see here. I have to show some of the other tables that are also on here. So complications. Let me see complication. 1. A common ingredient is missing. Let me see what good ingredient that would be. There's above table mechanics. There is tables of ingredients you can also refer to if you need an idea. So for a common one, let me roll and see. Actually, no, there's some stuff here. So as I'm looking around, going through drawers and looking for the labels, I realize I am missing The Devil's Bit Scabious. It is one for healing, fire, and melancholy. Well, the healing, of course, needed for the body. And I think the fiery nature of it helps bring back that spirit that the artists can use for their practice. Why do I keep missing ingredients? No. So I gather what I can, measure it out, fill in the things I need, mortar, pestle, on through. And I turn to the painter and I say, all right, well, take a moment to relax. I just need to step out to get one ingredient that we need to get fresh. And I will have your potion together shortly. Since this is a common ingredient, I don't think it would take me long to find. So I do find it out in the gardens. It's just in one of sort of the outreach, not the front garden that everybody can see, but somewhere in the back. And let me see. A 4, a critical success. So after the complications of the first customer and worrying of what stories will come to me later today or tomorrow of this merchant and what he says, I have no idea if he'll be persuasive or if some other words will come out of him. But with this painter, I'm now hyper focused on the measurements, maintaining the correct temperature of boiling and putting everything together, keeping in tune with my senses, because the smell, the taste, the touch, all of it. And as I swirl it, that red viscous kind of evaporates within the vial. There's now just a clearish red fluid and a bit of that steam. And once that cools off, I cork it, give it to the painter, and say, well, I have a good feeling that this will help you as you need some restorative things. So this will recover you from those bruises and bumps and any scrapes you have, as well as just give you new vigor on what it is that you're doing. And the painter nods. And just, all right. Okay. And he takes a sip, kind of tasting a little bit. I'm like, no, take it in one go and it'll work a lot better. So he's like, oh, okay. And he throws it back, shoots it back, and kind of sits there, tasting it, makes a bit of a face for a second, because, you know, delightful medicine taste. Like, oh, it's supposed to taste sour like that? It's like, just give it a moment. And then kind of, oh, okay, it's more like a sour cherry. And as sort of talks about what he is tasting, I can already see those bruises lifting up, the tiredness from his eyes starting to dissipate, and that wretched look that from my first impression now fade away to a more eccentric, uplifting spirit. He smiles. He's like, I'm already feeling much better. Thank you. And he, of course, pays, as one must, and dashes out the door feeling energized. He's like, I know what to paint now. And he rushes off. Our next one. Ooh, see, this is fun. It's a mortar and pestle. So 5 of diamonds. So, as I clean up from the painter's potion, I hear the bells jingle and the door open as I turn and see a friar standing in the doorway. The robe's just barely above their feet. Hair kind of shaved, a shaved down head. Thick glasses on his front. I'm just wearing like sort of muted dark brown robes. And he looks very, very excited. So I greet the friar and I say, "Oh, hello, welcome. How can I help you?" And I start realizing it's now much later in the day, sort of on the cusp, I'll say sort of on the cusp of evening. The first one definitely took a long time because of that one ingredient that was missing. But the friar comes in excited. I was like, "Oh, yes. I'm hoping you can help me. I'm looking for some sort of potion that can help with resistance. You see, something that can, help against illusions and enchantments. My fellow friars and I are going out into one of the local ruins for a festival. We're asked to help sanctify the grounds before the festival starts to make sure we don't bring any bad omens or upset any of the local spirits." And I nod and I'm like, okay. And he says, "So I'm hoping to have just a small batch of any sort of potion or whatever, so that we may be protected as we set out our rituals to protect the grounds." Okay, so it sounds like you are needing, as I flip through the tome, a vile warding draft. So let me see, what do we have on hand here? Oh, I feel like we did not grow enough or prepare enough potions that I have to completely build from scratch here. All right. Oh, I didn't do my story thing from last time. That's okay. So I dart around looking from my recipe card and the ingredients, and I realize a complication that comes up is that nothing is missing. There's nothing missing at all, in fact. I pull various things out from the different drawers. There is some, your bases of herb. I make sure there's a bit of sage. And I get a little bit of a phoenix feather. A bit of moonstone dust. And as I measure it all out and bring it all together, to failure with a mixed result. What could that be? Well, I think I have everything measured out well. And I start brewing it all together, and I do realize that instead of the pale glow that I usually get from the moonstone dust, it takes more of that ember, and I think maybe that's just the phoenix feather. But I realize, oh no, that could be changing the properties that was intended. Did I do too much, or maybe the smudge wasn't supposed to be phoenix feather? Or maybe it wasn't supposed to be moonstone? Sometimes it is a very cursive writing in an old hand that was very hard to read if you do not know how to read it. Oh dear. But I tried to keep a steady hand and steady mind as I'm brewing it all together and seeing the final bits of it come up. And instead of the draft that I thought would be the appropriate thing for this, it has sort of like a purplish hue to it. And yeah, I am a little bit concerned. Needing a potion to protect against things is one thing, but I may have made a potion that causes... Yeah. Yep. So instead of the draft that has dark tendrils of swirls with silver mist, is now just this pure purple fluid. And what the draft's supposed to do is resistance against illusions and enchantments that seek to influence the mind. Maybe this one may cause them to be more receptive to illusions and enchantments. So not to downtrodden this very excited friar, I say, first I ask, will you be the only one taking this? And he's like, yeah, I just need a small batch for one of us to help, protect. I'm like, all right. So what will this do then is, you will be able to really see the illusions and the enchantments. It will heighten that connection. So if you see anything odd, don't interact. Just make sure everyone is still doing the ritual, and I'm sure it will be fine. And he sort of smiles and he takes it. It's like, wait until you're there. Do not take it now. It could create a problem. And he sort of inquisitively cocks a brows, like, okay. Well, thank you, miss. I am a friar. And he sort of smiles. And I just sigh, like, all right. I believe the church has donated a plant to us before, so that will be... And he's like, all right, thank you. And he rushes out. And our last customer of the day is now just about to close. I'm going over, about to flip that close sign when someone comes rushing up to the door from the village. That's an 8 of hearts. Barrister. So a barrister from the village comes rushing up. And they are, upon my first impression, excited. They are very excited. And they sort of catch me in the door. And I open it. I'm like, hi, can I help you? I was like, oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. Please, if you could just, stay open for just a moment. I could really use a potion. What I rolled the wrong die. A potion of clairvoyance, if you don't mind. You see, there's some work I am doing and could use a bit of clarity on it. Okay. Please, just slow down for a moment. Come in. And I let them in as I flip the sign to close. And they tell me a few things. That they are processing a case right now. Let me confirm. I think I know what a barrister is, but let me confirm it. A barrister is a lawyer entitled to practice as an advocate. Barrister, okay, yes. So he says, you see, I have this client and they got into a tussle with a merchant that came into town. It wasn't a good scene, but they could really use some help. As I think, and he trusts us going to details. Like, I can't say too much. Just, anything that could help with, that sort of surface level read. It's gonna be my first case, and I could really use something to give me really good insight. And I just kind of pause and I nod. I'm like, well, I do know of a mind reading draft, if that's what you're asking. But it's not a very common request, and it'd be a little manipulative. This is for a case you're doing. It's like, oh, yes. I can't give too many details. However, I just want to be able to prove that the person is innocent. They did it. They, defended themselves. It was just, and I just need the most information I can so I can build the best case for my advocacy for the individual. Like, all right. Let me see what I can do. And I flip through the tome to find my recipe. And I begin looking through, following the recipe card. I do find that one of the complex ingredients is missing. That really gives this potion its hue. And as sort of that really mesmerizing indigo color of the liquid. So I sigh, realizing it's probably just indigo I'm missing, and we haven't had a lot of success with growing it. If you're willing to wait, I can go and find an ingredient that is missing. And he nods, and I say, okay. I think the tea is cold by this point, but feel free to drink it. It's good, cool as well. I'll go see if I can find an ingredient. And I pack up my tools for herb gathering and get a lantern so I can see, as now is that dusk hour and night's starting to fall. And I go out into the gardens and I begin looking for the spot where the indigo is. And yeah, it goes well later as trying to find the healthy sprigs of it that I can cut out without damaging the plant. It takes a bit of time. Eventually make it back. And let's see. The 2. I've been rolling 2 a lot. Lots of failures and mixed results. I know right away this potion isn't going to work as intended. It's either going to amplify the thoughts of everybody and he's just going to hear them all, not just the singular potion he wants to listen in on, or he is going to hear thoughts with some control. However, it's not going to be in a way that he thought it would. Maybe he hears it as gibberish, or he only gets in like colors or like musical notes as opposed to actual words. And when I finished brewing it together, the indigo color did not take. It is now more of a cyan blue. As I sort of pour it in the vessel and cork it. Well, okay, so this is your potion. This one's a very difficult one to make. It may not work because it's just very particular. Don't be surprised if either you hear everybody's thoughts or you hear nothing. Or you may just amplify your own thoughts. Just be very careful with it. Only drink when you mean to. He sort of nods. He's like, oh, Okay. Well, I was hoping just for a little boost. I think I got my case pretty well, but I was just worried that I don't have all the facts. So, all right. Let me try it. And he pays for the potion. Ended up not being full price because of the failure. And he walks out, and I mark down just each one that I had to discount because of the potential fail that has happened. But yeah, let's answer a environment question as the last person leaves the shop well into the night now. Had to let him borrow a lantern to find his way back home, as he did not come out in his excitement of getting a potion to help him from, the idea he had. So he just ran out here without a light for back home. So our next environment question is there a castle or fort nearby? And how old is the structure? How large? Well, I explained there were sort of ruins along up to the mountain. So I'd like to think that not too far from our village and sort of nearish the lake is a large castle, very sizable, tall towers and structures and kind of layers of it. And it's sort of built out of one of the mountains that got almost turned into a mesa, like a flat top. Sort of rounded structure, semi-rounded, almost like Helm's Deep from Lord of the Rings from Middle-earth. So jetting out from the mountains in a rounded structure overlooking the lake that's nearby, and just across the way is our village. So you can see the castle, especially at sunrise, just sort of sitting out from the mountain with some additional range in behind it. Just there's a perfect time in the morning, especially come spring, that the sunlight catches in the valleys and bounces around and really sets a glow like a backdrop to the castle. I'm not familiar with the politics of the region, so maybe I should be. You never know when they might pop into the shop or ask for things to help in the apothecary sense. But I know it has been a family in power in the region for a particular time, maybe 50, no, probably close to 100 years. The structure is older, but in times of lordship and all of that, things get switched around and people get rewarded and all that fun, delightful stuff. But the day is over. I mark down the ingredients used. Sigh. I have to last 6 more days. All right. So, just a quick back over of our phases here. We've done, for characters, describe them, determine the potion, answer questions about the local environments of the cottage after each customer. So I forgot to do it for each person. I'll remember to do it for every customer. But for now, that's what it is. So let us roll for our next day. 1, we get 1 customer. And maybe that's because of the mishaps of yesterday. But I get up today and I go about, I clean or make sure the shop's clean, the cottage is clean. After maybe about an hour or so in the morning after breakfast, I go into the gardens, flip the open sign as the sun has risen, and tend the front garden so I can keep an eye on who comes to the front door. And eventually by noontime, someone does approach that I see coming up the road. Got my 1 card draw. And it is 6 of clubs, which is a vintner. What is a vintner? I don't know that word. Let me look this up, so I can appropriately describe this person as they approach. That's what I thought. I was thinking like vineyard, maybe the T is silent, but a wine merchant. So a wine merchant, a vintier comes up the path and makes the turn, and I can just barely see them above the bushes. And they are, upon first impression... I keep getting excited. Let me roll it again. I don't want to keep doing excited. Ha. 4. Mischievous. They need a complex ingredient. And as they're sort of like looking in the window, I dust myself up and come up and say, oh, hello. And as I speak to them and give them my greeting, they jump a little bit and they're like, oh, ha, hello, hello, hello. I was hoping I could get a potion. Like, all right, what kind of potion are you looking for? And they sort of blink a little bit. I scratch at their face, like, oh, looking for some kind of resistance potion. You know, maybe... Oh, that wasn't the right one I needed to roll, but I'll go with it. You know, something that can help with the mind, make it a little more resilient. So I could use some, you know, give myself some focus. I got a lot of ledger work to do today. If you can't tell, I sell wine, I grow wine, like all the things I need to do to make wine. And there's a lot of things I have to keep track and a lot of book work and, you know, and we got some classes, some workshops to go through. He's sort of a little all over the place, I get the sense he's not being 100% forthright. They're like, well, if you need that sort of mental fortitude for study or in making it through paperwork, I know sometimes I need this as myself, but maybe a mental resilience potion would be for you. And I go inside, and one of the complex ingredients I know we need, a roll for that, just for funsies. It will be a rare ingredient, let's say. Oh, that one doesn't make sense. I'm gonna pick it. Never mind, I'm gonna pick it. So the complex ingredients, as I go through the recipes, I realize I need to use scent of an incoming snowstorm. Especially for this kind of particular mental fixation that he needs. Something that gives him a sense of a clear head. And yeah, of course the smell of fresh coming snow may do that. Find the cold can very much refresh and refocus. And all right. Let me see what I can do for you as I bring the individual in, and they sort of look about, kind of poking at some of the potted plants inside, looking along the countertops for things that are out on display, some of the particular tools that I use. Mind we are missing one common ingredient for this particular draft, and I realize as I go through, it's actually, let's see, well, supposed to get a solid green hue with shades of copper and tastes bitter when it hits the palate. I think we are missing rosemary, potentially. That sounds like an appropriate one. And as I sort of realize this, because typically I'd crush up the rosemary and let it burn a little bit to get the smell and the scents out and the bitterness out before I mix it into the rest of it. So now I have to go get this rosemary, and it doesn't take me long at all. That's just outside if I'm out of rosemary. So I'm like, all right, I sort of give like a narrow glance at this individual as don't like how mischievous they seem to me, but like I just need a quick moment to get one of the ingredients. It's just outside. I'll be right back. And I go quick with some herb scissors, quickly snip off one of the sprigs and come back in. I see pretty much the second I open the door and come in, they sort of start up and place their hands behind the back. And I see the book was fumbled with, so I go over, put away the book, like, do you have any questions? Can I help you with anything? It's like, oh, no. I'm perfectly good. Yes, that potion you said, the one you suggested, what did you call it? A mental resilience potion. It's like, yes. You know, some of your recipes are interesting. They would be make for fine ingredients in wine. Have you considered wine making before? Do you think you could get some more interesting concoctions if you're to do it with wine? And I start preparing the mixtures. And like, well, I don't know if I want to mix alcohol with potions. You can do potions with alcohol for sure, but usually not recommended. Let me roll my d4. 3, success with mixed results. So I swirl it, and I do get of that green hue. I do get a bit of those copper strands. I do realize the bitterness isn't quite there. And I think, all right. Well, here is your potion. It seems like it won't last very long. So probably just drink it just before you're about to do any of your studies or any of your ledger work. And try not to let yourself be distracted. This should give you a lot of focus, but you can still be distracted. And sort of nods. He's like, all right. You said, well, rosemary is pretty common, isn't it? I wonder, as like I see him sort of pondering things that he can utilize. Like, well, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. But yes, just drink that and you'll be good to go for a little bit. He sort of nods. He's like, all right. And he hurriedly rushes out the door. And and for a moment, I do consider, like, what if we do have, like, a line of wine or maybe brandy of, like, potion making? Just, like, you know, things that help mellow you out a bit more. Anything like that. But speaking of mischievous people and alcohol, our next environment question is, does the village have a crime syndicate? And if so, who operates it? Are they known entity or more secretive? Yes, there is a local crime syndicate. They operate more in the bigger city that's close to the castle, but they do have a hideaway here. In fact, the hideaway is with that vineyard, with that man that had come in. So maybe that potion wasn't necessarily for the work that he said. Maybe it was for those in the syndicate to be able to have the focus they need to do the crimes that they need to do. It is a little bit more on the secretive side. Not necessarily dangerous people. They're more about theft. There's some branches that act more Robin Hood-y. But others do just like a thieves guild, just take and consume. they're not high in power. They are easy to bully the smaller communities. For us here, they try, because of how close we are to the castle and because we tend to have some more guards that come through, they don't push us around too much here. And considering some of the potions that my mentor Astrid can do, they don't want to upset her because she could make a potion that can really turn the tides and force them out. So they try to keep it on the down low. Right. But I only had the one customer today. I marked that, you know, the potion wasn't it was successful. It just may have unintended effects. Maybe the rosemary just wasn't burned long enough. Right. On to day 3. We get 2 customers today. So after having just the one, it was so easy to get new, like gather up the garden, clean it up, clean everything up yesterday, because it didn't take long to deal with the one customer. So as I am organizing again, I hear the bell of the front door ring, and I pop my head out from the the way into the kitchen, and I see coming around and up to the counter, we have Queen of Spades, an adventurer. I sort of blink my eyes in that morning light, shifting a little bit, the shadow now turning into more, the silhouette now getting details as they get away from that front morning light and into the more back of the shop. There's an adventurer. She is dressed well in various leathers and furs, has a broadsword on her back. Her hair, thick but brought back into braids and tied all the way up. Kind of maintained in that big braided sort of knotted bun. Bushy brows, some scars on her face, thin lips. And she looks around and she looks up, and my first impression of her, sort of nostalgic. There is something about her that reminds me of my grandmother. Not in terms of her age, she looks to be like not quite on the cusp of middle age, a little younger, but has known the world. And I kind of think of the different glasswares, vessels that we have to hold the potion in as she approaches, like, miss, I could use a help with something. You see, I need some sort of sense modification potion, if you don't mind. I hope you're able to help me. And I nod. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. What exactly you're hoping to improve? What are you needing here? And she scratches at her head for a moment before she explains. Well, I need, I need something to just improve the palette, so to speak. I'm traveling to another town just past the way, and they have a food festival going on, and I'm going to be participating in one of the eating contests. And I just want to make, to improve the tastes. I sort of nod. I'm like, All right, improve the taste. Well, I think I have one in mind. However, the things that are good, like juicy things and spices, will be very, very, like, almost overwhelming to you. But on the other side, anything that is sort of stale or on the, kind of more towards the rotten end will also be just as potent. And she nods. It's like, okay. Like, so, I can make you this potion, just, you gotta be very careful with how much you use. Okay. She's like, all right, I will take that into consideration, but if you can make me one, that sounds like it could really help with the palate. Like, all right, let me see what I can do. I'm begin rushing around. Thinking about, there's got to be a vessel for this potion. I really feel like it would match this individual. And what I find missing is nothing. There's nothing missing. Or is nothing is missing. So I pull out every ingredient that I need. It's already there. It's probably from all the work that I did yesterday, from the gardening and such. And then I begin looking through the different vials and potion bottles that we have of the empty ones. And I find the perfect crystal one. Sort of has etchings all through it, sort of that pinwheel etchings. And I put it aside. I'm like, all right, that'll work. It has a little gentle cork in the top, but the end of it is like a dropper. But instead of like being able to like squeeze it to get liquid, it's just one where it sort of collects up naturally and then you're able to shake it to get drops down. So I immediately get to work measuring out and crushing and filling out the liquids, and failure with mixed results. It's supposed to be a potion of shimmer and gold flake. Looks very stale. And my immediate thought is, oh no, this is going to make everything taste stale. Okay. Already warned it can make stale food very potent. Okay. And I kind of bring it up and show the adventurer and say, well, I finished it. This one's always a little bit tricky because to get the enhanced palate, again, it can affect both ends. Your tasty foods can be overwhelming as well as your rotten foods. So be very, very choosy, because even something that should be tasting very well could get a very stale thing to it with this. So if there is a food you really want to enjoy, do not use this. And she nods, like, all right. I don't know if it's quite what I had hoped. But all right, I'll take it. And she only pays, because of the failure, just a bit of gold. And goes off on our way. With that, I start cleaning up from that, and our next customer comes to the door, peeking through the windows. As we now have... Let me take some water here, important to hydrate. It was club. We now have a thatcher. I believe I know what a thatcher is. I think that's a roofing person. Let me double check. Starting new jobs of lore. Or, I mean, your. Of course, it gives me people. We are not having Margaret Thatcher as a customer. What's the job of Thatcher? There we go. Replace timbers. Okay. Perfect. So we have a local Thatcher coming. I'm sort of familiar with him. He's come by at least once for our log cabin, like the section of our home in the back. But he comes in a kind of a scrawny older fellow. And my first impression of him, he's looking quite ragged, quite wretched. And illustration method. Kind of scraped up, and he comes in. It's like, oh, hello, I'm good you're still open. When I heard the Apothecaire left, I thought the store would be closed for the time being. I completely forgot that there was an apprentice. I didn't realize you were of enough study to take on the shop on your own. I'm just give him a smile. I'm like, well, doing my best while Astrid is away. How can I help you? Like, well, I need an affliction potion of some sort. And I sort of cock a brow, like an affliction potion. What troubles are you having? That's quite an ask. As in this, I keep to myself. I don't say aloud to the customer, but affliction potions do come from more darker alchemical arts. Usually not ones that come lightly and can bring despair and heartache and poison and all such things. But the man begins to describe his plight to try and justify his ask. And he says, well, miss, someone has done me deep wrong. If my appearance doesn't give it away, well, I've been swindled. And he sort of takes a seat in one of the waiting chairs. Says, I just want the person to feel the despair that I feel. That maybe they can finally find the regret and give me back my home. And I just like, your home? It's like I was trying to get work for payment, and next thing I know, they took my home. We're supposed to have a meeting, so I hope maybe I could have a potion I could slip into the cup and make them wish for or to return the home thinking they're cursed. I ponder for a second. I remember potion, and I quietly flipped through the recipe tome, finding the affliction section, being very careful not to reveal any of the pages. There is a potion that can cause despair. The Screech of the Banshee. And it can last for several days, depending on the potency. Alright, I believe I do have a means of a potion to make for you. The administration of this potion won't be typical, which will be difficult because of the easiest way is to put it in a cup. But for this particular one, it needs to be breathed in. I sort of Ferris, but I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if he's not a smoker, then at least, are you a smoker? Is anyone attending smoking? He was like, well, I smoke. I'm like, okay. So if you offer him the smoke of a pipe and he doesn't take it, you can at least blow the smoke around him and cause him to breathe in. Don't breathe in yourself. Don't breathe in the pipe. Just burn the pipe. Let it get in their face. Try not to let it get into yours. And he will get the effects. But let me see what we have on hand. And I start rummaging through everything that we have. we are missing a very complex ingredient. So with this one, I feel like because the Banshee Scream. It is an intangible ingredient we're missing. We're missing the sense of ice filling your veins. And that's where that feeling of dread and despair just inflict into a person. This is going to take a while to get. I have to go out a couple hours into the mountains. There is a cave. I'll have to sit in there and wait for that sense to fill in. I tell the man, come back at midnight. The shop will initially be closed, but I'll have a light on in the specific window there. Just knock 3 times and I will give you your potion. I go, all right. As long as it's later and I can have it before my meeting tomorrow. I'm like, all right, go on. And I pack up everything that I need. I have a good hearty lunch. I get my materials. I grab my grandmother's blade, wrap myself up, and head out. All around evening time, and as I go out, I find the cave and I walk in and I sit in the cave. It is very cold. I can hear the drip of water coming from the roof, just from that opening. The howl of wind as it catches and gusts through the vapid space. And I just think of moments of fear to try and enlist that icy feeling in my body. Not just the physical icy feeling from cold, but like a sense of despair. I try and drudge up those mournful memories until there's a point where, well, with it being a Banshee Scream, I wait with a bag, like a bright silvery bag, some sort of like very densely woven material, like it's hard for anything to penetrate it. And I just wait, closing my eyes tightly, until a sound pops. And I quickly kneel over and scream into the bag in reaction. And quickly seal it up. And panic, look around. And I see at the cave entrance just a little chipmunk. And it squeaks and it's running away from my scream. I go back to my cottage. And no, I fail the potion. It is an extremely tough one, any affliction potion, but needing to get at this ingredient, maybe I couldn't get the fear. I can enlist that fear. But I do my best. I am exhausted and tired because I was waiting for a long time out in the woods and had to find my way back. And I do put a light in the window and the man does return. I say, well, I'm unsure if the ingredient that I needed is potent enough. And I look at the vial that or the powder that I've made, and maybe it was the method that I need to create for this particular one. I sigh. Because I really wanted to help him. I wanted to give him a chance to scare that man to give him back his home. Heck, maybe it was the crime syndicate that took it from him. So I just say, well, here's the potion, but do know that sometimes it can just not penetrate into a person. If they're still having troubles, even after the meeting, even after using this potion, if just nothing's working, there's the barrister in town. Many people know you own that home. You built that home from scratch. You know your hand. And we can sort something out. Maybe when Astrid comes back. She is a very respected individual of the community, and I know if anyone can scare them into giving you back your home, she can. You know, she owes you a lot for building the lodging back here. The man nods, like, right, well, thank you for trying, miss. Do my best tomorrow. Maybe that... You're right, maybe that barrister, I can bring him in. Thank you. And he turns away into the night. Alright, shifting body. Next day, day 4. Yeah. Roll. Oh wait, environment question. I did it again. I need one for both of them because I had 2 people today. All right. First one of local lore and such. What is the name of the closest village? Oh, this works for the Venturers. So the closest village name is Strogafur. Sure, Strogafur. It's pretty sizable, probably bigger than my local village. About a half day's walk from the cottage, and is overseen by a village of elders. Or, village of elders. The village is overseen by a group of elders. Just considered a council. And they manage the various community events and all the like, deciding various roles of the community, and how to administer out. So that is them. Now for this, what is the climate like year-round? Pretty mildish. Like I said, I'm kind of imagining like Canadian Rocky Mountains, so it can get a little cold by winter. But there is sort of full seasons. There is a warm summer, not like intensely hot, but a warm summer, great for swimming the lakes and stuff. A very beautiful fall, just lots of colors as the leaves change and the plants change, and then beautiful blankets of snow come the winter, and people playing and taking to the mountains and the hills. And by spring, it just gets, with all that melt and such, you get such fog and mist in the air. All right, good day 4. 4 people. 1, 2. All right. Still feeling kind of off. Still nervous. We are over halfway through, basically, or nearly halfway through. And just as I'm getting ready for a door open, someone is rushing up the pathway. 3 of spades. See who that is. That is a wheelwright. So he is rushing up the pathway. My first impressions of him as he's coming up to the door just as I'm finished flipping it open and now opening the door itself. They are extremely agitated. And they come bursting on through, and he's just like, oh, miss, thank goodness. Came just at the right time, I feel. I could really, really use some help. I'm looking for a very, very special potion. Ugh. Like, okay. What is it that you need? It's like, well, I'm so frustrated. I feel like people are calling on me all the time and I could really use a break. And when I do get a break, everyone still tries and calls on me. There's just never any time. And I'm thinking, what if I could be a beast? I'm already treated like a workhorse. Why not be something fantastical and just get out of here for a time? Just scare everybody off and finally have time to relax. And I kind of straighten up. It's like, okay, you want to be a beast. Oh, that's a tough one. All right, that sounds maybe a metamorphosis draft. Oh gosh, I don't know if we have the ingredient. And I go scrounging around. And I find that, yes, the drawer that contains the chrysalis essence that is the key ingredient for this draft is missing. And just... no. This is gonna take time. If I'm lucky, the season for the enchanted butterflies isn't over yet. Now, we do have a garden that very much attracts butterflies, but I need their iridescent chrysalis. I think we have a spot out in the forest. It's going to take me some time to get out there, to forge through, and come back. Okay. Well, sir, what you're asking for is incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. Let me go and try and find it. And... well, we'll see what happens. I go out, and it takes a good couple hours. Eventually I do find that forest spot that we sort of nurtured to be a sort of almost like an outdoor butterfly observatory. We set up a lot of plants here, like local wildlife plants within the ecosystem, creating hideaways and areas where butterflies can land, as well as other bugs. Just anything can come into the space and utilize it for nourishment and nesting and such. And again, the iridescent chrysalis is very hard to notice, especially if the light isn't catching it right. I do feel around, and once it feels like I caught something on my hand, I bring it up. And yeah, I do eventually get that iridescent chrysalis. I come back, and the man is just sort of sitting outside. He finished the tea that I offered him long ago. He has some of his tools with him, so now he's sort of carving away at a block of wood. When he sees me come up, he's like, "Oh, took you long enough." Like, well, sir, I told you it'd take me a while. The potion you asked for is incredibly difficult, and the ingredient needed that I did not have on hand is incredibly hard to find. But I have it, so let me see what can be done. And I reopen the shop and turn back inside. You know what? I'm going to roll a different die. That die's not liking me. Let me roll a different die. I want to use... let me lose this one. Give me a better result, please. I guess I can only roll 2s and 1s. 2 is better than 1. So I go back inside and I begin working the process, grinding down the chrysalis to get that essence out of it. And I throw everything into the little blackened cauldron. And I make sure that I stir counterclockwise 3 times. And then clockwise 5. And then counterclockwise 7. and then clockwise 13. And I watch material or the liquid change from a deep purple and black to a churning putrid yellow, and then become as clear as water. But I realize there is some mistakes in it. There's little chunks of that chrysalis sort of still floating about. And I do note that this isn't going to be a successful potion. It either could go awry in a really bad way or something else. But I finish it, and before I can even discuss with the man of the potential issues, he throws down the coin and takes it out of my hand. He's like, all right, perfect. I just want to get this over with. And he goes outside, and I watch as he swigs it back and throws the glass down, shattering it on the walk pathway stone. And he stands there for a second, taking a breath before he begins coughing. And then he gives a big sneeze, like an achoo. I see long ears. His ears turn into sort of donkey ears. And he gets almost a horse-like lower half. He almost, more like looking like a weird chimera satyr. He still has his humanish head, like a humanish head and face, though now his nose is more broad, almost like a cat or a lion. He's got weird boar tusks now jetting out. He gets heavily furry, like just fur all over, coming out of everything. His pants, of course, rip from the change of the leg anatomy, now having been contorted, and you know, just how goat legs turn into. And yeah, he looks like a weird chimera satyr as he bleats out in a yell and kind of looks back at me. And I give a sort of shrug, because in a way he did get what he asked for. He's changed. He's like, how long am I supposed to be like this? Well, it'll either last an hour or more. Just like, or more. Like, you wanted to be something other than the person that you are. Now you are something else. And incredibly unique too. You should, you know, you may not be a dragon or a griffin, but you're entirely unique beast. I've never seen one such as you. He sort of fluffs, you know, his ears kind of turn back and forth as more parts now appear on him. He now has the goat horns on top, but they're like twisting. And yeah, he's got like the very prominent boar tusks. He's got scales on the tops of his hands where it isn't furred, and more like bird-like hands in terms of talons. He's got hooves, like horse hooves instead of the cloven hooves of a goat on his bottom. And he's got that long lion's tail. He's like, Art, not happy about it, but that is what I asked for. Ugh. And he scampers off. But as he goes, another person was coming up, seeing this whole scene, because it took a very long time. And this person, with an ace of diamonds, they are... Oh, wait, no, lore question. We must do a lore question. Let me do that first. What is the primary trade plead in the village? Are they farmers, sheephold? Well, I think with our beginning individuals and with the Apothecaire, we're probably a lot of farming around here, especially coming off the rivers and the lakes. Lots of really good farmland, very rich soil. And probably some general cattle, like things like sheep, goats, llamas, that kind of stuff. But our next one, having come across the scene here, is a guard, which makes sense. Guards do patrol, but this one's sort of off duty, but still has his uniform on. He Usually, well, let's see what my first impression of him is. This will affect his reaction. 7. Aloof. He sort of just tilts his head as I'm like trying to calm the customer down, and then he's running off. I sort of scratch at my head and like, oh, another failed potion. The guard comes up and he's just like, did I just see a weird chimera beast man? Yes, sir. Yes, you saw a weird chimera beast man. He wanted a potion to transform. I explained it is very difficult. He agreed to the complications, and that's where we're at. Guard nods, is like, all right, well, I also require a potion, if you don't mind. I'm like, oh, yes, please come into the shop. Tell me what you need. And he begins saying what his issues are. It's sort of like half-ish way. He's like, well, we've been having some problems with the local crime syndicate, you see, and I mean, you heard about the local Thatcher, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, I think we're supposed to have a meeting today. How did that, are you aware of that? And he was like, oh yeah, there was a couple of us guards sitting out this morning. Didn't do too well. He kind of threw dust in the man's face. The man immediately began screaming and going wild. I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, you were saying, dealing with the syndicate. It's like, oh yeah, I happen to have, an affliction potion of some sort. And I very much, oh boy, well, potions that cause curses or anything like that? And he's like, yeah, I need one of those. Okay, well, those are very, very difficult to make. Is there anything in particular? Maybe I can suggest something else. I was like, oh no, well, you gotta try and essentially decay their supplies. They get food running in a lot, sort of need to weed them out. If we can rot out their supplies, then maybe we might be able to, you know, convince them to get out of hiding. Sort of nod. I'm like, all right, that's not the worst I've had to deal with. I flipped through the recipes. There is a tincture of rot that might be able to help in this. Doesn't go into food directly usually. It's usually sprinkled on growing things. Yeah, this is a difficult one. He was like, well, that sounds pretty close to what we need. If we can't go on their food, maybe we can sort of go scorched earth on their main gardens that they take advantage of. I know, that winery, I guess? Like, okay, to affect grapevines, and okay. Oh, okay, let me see. And I pull up the recipe and I go looking about the ingredients list. And actually, there's nothing that I'm missing here. I pull some skull cap. I pull some vampire thing that I burn away and grind up mixed with some basilisk venom. I add some hydrangea to hide the scents, to give that more floral scent so it doesn't the smell doesn't immediately permeate the air when it's sprinkled on the herbs. And I kind of go through the process following the notes or the things to the letter on the recipe card. And making sure I give myself a little space to write off, did this, and then this went wrong. Alright. Come on, die. 3! Success with mixed results. I begin to boil it up to sort of simmer all the ingredients. The water evaporates and there's nothing but a hardened viscous at the bottom. As it dries, it becomes more of a powder. As I bake it, I pull it out, I grind in the mortar, and put it all in a silvered box. And I pass it to the guard and I say, don't need a whole lot to sprinkle on the plants, but you have to make sure you put it exactly where you intend to. This could very much spread if it's not maintained, if you don't pay attention. So if keep it to the garden beds and you immediately take out the plants when you're done, it should work for a time. Don't let anybody eat those vegetables or fruits or whatever it is you're putting in. I don't know what you're doing with it. Don't tell me. But just be careful. And the guard takes it. He's like, all right. Will this, wash away or anything? And I kind of think, I'm like, well, the more potent it is, the more likely it is to stay. It will just become food in the earth and poison the plants. Well, poison will rot away the roots and such. But yes, if it is going to rain, it may wash it all away. Sort of nods like, all right. Well, thank you, miss. He puts down the coin and he walks out. Next lore question. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The guard walks out, and it's well past noon now in my day. What's the local guild specialty? I think one of our specialties in the local guild is... That's a good question. I like to think it is because we have a large farming community. I do think maybe tools need to be used. People need tools, so probably a smith. There's a good smithing community creating farming tools, things for animals, all that kind of stuff. And it has been here for a very, very long time. Ooh, Queen of Clubs. Speaking of farmers, a farmer comes trotting up the path. He gives, a respectful nod to the guard as they pass by each other along the pathway. And he looks very, very nervous. I was like, oh, hi, miss. I could use a large batch of a potion, please. All right, sure. As he rushes on in. Like, if you could, there's something rare, I need help with. Like, okay, rare is a hard thing to do. What are you thinking? What is it that you need help with? And it's like, well, you see, my grandfather passed recently, and we realized there were some secrets that he had carried with him into the afterlife. We're part of the farm, and we are realizing that we could really use his mentorship. The farm ended up coming to me, and I look like a farmer, I act like a farmer, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I could really use my... I just need to talk to my grandpa. I sort of nod and... I feel very much similar things. I'm like, yeah, I understand you. There are times where I very much want to reach out to my grandma. Let me see. And I flip through and I find that there is a potion, an ethereal elixir. And as I go through, we do have the rare ingredient, the falling star that I need. But the common base is missing. We are missing lavender. All right. Well, we have a lavender bush outside. I've established that early on. Okay. Yeah, no problem. All right, sir. Well, hang tight. I do have all the ingredients. Just let me go get the remainder that we seem to run out of in the drawers, and then I'll get started on the whole thing for you. So I dash out with my tools, I clip off some sprigs of lavender, and at least enough to make the large batch. I realize at the size, I'm just like, so why do you need so much? Is it just you talking to your grandfather? It's like, well, I hope maybe like drinking a little bit every time we need to ask him something, like maybe every morning or something. Like, oh, okay, well, it can lose its potency. Are you sure? It's like, yeah, if we don't get through it before it loses it, it's fine, as long as we can, you know, get to talk to him. I nod. I'm like, oh, okay. I come in and I pull the lavender off and start like boiling it up and getting lavender oil from it. Okay, can I roll anything other than 1? Let me see. 3. All right. So success with the mix result. It takes a long time, and even before the brew finishes, my next customer is already in, which I nod to them, taking them in. They are 9 of clubs. They are a fellow herbalist, and my initial impression of them is excited. Maybe it was because they see me at work right now, and now it has made me nervous as a fellow herbalist is standing in my shop, and I'm trying to focus on my work, trying to focus on this potion as I very carefully making this large batch of substance, going over the ingredients carefully, measuring out the lavender oil, and catching the bottle of a fallen star, and just very, very lightly tapping it into the brew. And I stir into just the simmer as it begins to burble. And it takes a very silvery starlight form in the liquid as I begin gently scooping it into bright crystal vials. So I got this elongated bottle for the large batch. And at first you think it isn't enough, but I'm like, all it takes is a sip. So I hand it to him. And I say, all you need is a single sip to get that connection to ethereal planes, and hopefully your grandfather will be on the farm for you to meet him. Oh, backtrack. I'm reading the potion here. This is where you gotta read everything. So I have this brewed for a moment. I'm like, in order for me to finish this, we have to wait for the nightfall. Luckily, you showed up on a new moon, so I can finish this tonight. But I have to wait till nightfall to get a falling star and finish this potion. He nods, I'm like, so come back after midnight. probably around 2 a.m. because that's when the constellation will be over. It's like, oh, all right. Walks out. The herbalist is still there, though. The herbalist is still there, super excited. So we'll turn that card. He's not done yet. He's like, oh, interesting. So you're making an ethereal elixir? Oh, I heard that's a tough one. Aren't you a little new to be working on that? That's quite exciting. I'm like, well, I know feel like I'm still in training for sure, but our Astrid trusts me and has given me this recipe, so I'm sure she believes I can handle it. And the herbalist was like, well, dear, that is amazing. I'm so glad. I wish I got to do. Excuse me. I wish I could have jumped right into that kind of potion making. Excuse me. I need some tea. And I gesture to the tea today. It's just a kind of a green tea. So I offer her the green tea. And she's like, well, dear, I'm just clear out to my own gardens, so here's what I could really use. I also need a rare potion. Like, all right. So what exactly are you looking for? It's like, well, it just so happens I could also use that ethereal potion that you happen to be making. And if you're making a big batch, well, that is going to work for me too. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you need it for? Like, how? No, she's like, oh, I just need like the tiniest bit. Gonna do a little bit of seance, you know. I'm like, okay. Smaller batch size. Perfect. Yeah. I'm doing a massive batch for the other fellow, so now I can make a little batch for you out of that. So yeah, just come back, like I said, for him. Come back at around 2 a.m. Should be good to go. Like, oh, perfect. All right, well, ta-da! And she wanders on out, all excited. She's like, oh, the divines have noticed this perfect timing, perfect as fated, as she runs out the door. And I sort of sigh and slump on the table and prepare my brew. I already rolled that successful for him, but I just want to see what the smaller batch would be. Guild. Okay. Oh, she also needs, so like, hold on. I'm missing for the smaller batch was a 2 first. So I'm missing a complex ingredient for her. And also a success with mixed results. So I need a fresh shooting star for sure for hers. There's not quite enough I have to finish the entire batches for both. So I go through the night, I begin brewing it. The constellation we have from the star initially is there, but I need a little bit more to finish both batches. And I wait. It's now 1 a.m. I'm just waiting and praying for a shooting star to come down. And then I watch as one blinks out and moves and starts to blink off. And with some powder that Astrid has instructed me to use whenever we need to catch a star, I blow it into the winds, and it's as though it summons that shooting star right down, and I immediately catch it in a platinum bag and immediately rush back into the cottage and begin the preparations and slowly stir into the stars into the liquid as it bubbles and turns into that bright silvery star material. The 2 people do come back. The woman's super excited and the boy exhausted and nervous. I present within the large crystal vessel and her with a much smaller, almost like a tiny perfume size bottle. I say, the effects will be super temporary. It could very much only be moments. So think of your questions ahead of time before you take any, just in case there's not enough time. And I don't know. Just you might see a lot more than just the people you intend to see. A fae can come into vision and other such creatures. The herbalist now is like, oh dear, I'm so aware. I'm so aware. Thank you. And she runs off. The boy is just like wide-eyed. He was like, what do you mean? I thought I could like summon my granddad. And like, oh no. This just gives you sight into the ethereal. That's why I said if your grandfather's still on the farm. He sort of furrows his brows like, oh, okay. And then he goes off on the road himself. Ended up being 2 people because the potion had to be made at night on a new moon. So our world lore question. Next one. There's a statue in the town square. What historical figure? Okay. So in the local town, there is a square, of course. A bit of it's like a mix of a fountain and a garden, but there's a statue standing up in the middle. And I think the statue is of a Kirin, like a Japanese unicorn Kirin. And, you know, that very single long horn, more chimera, like horse-like body, very thin and live, but it's kind of pranced up and looking very proud. It said this is a ancestral spirit of the lands that we have here, a representation of it, one of its more known forms it likes to take, as it presents itself to people when it feels like it. I think that's the name of it. Let me just double check. I want to be correct. Sorry, not a single horn. It has 2. Very kind of mix of a feather. Oh no, it is a Kirin. Okay. But it has like some notes of scales as well as fur all through it. And it just is a very beautiful statue, though because of its age, it has built up some moss and algae from like the pond or fountain around its feet. So it has more of that bestial look to it naturally from the nature that has decided to consume the statue. And for our 4th one, is there any common illnesses that sweep through the village? Well, with the changing of seasons, we often get colds. Just your general colds. So we make large batches of like lozenges, cold and cough medicine, all those kinds of stuff to help with stuffiness, fevers, sore throats, all the common cold symptoms. Yeah. 3. 1. On our 5th day. All right. So, waking up a little late after the exhausting night trying to stay up and make a potion and catch stars. I finally open up the shop about an hour later than usual, and a person comes trotting up the path, as they always do. And we have... is it 7 of spades? Oh. It takes me a second to realize who is there. They almost climb up silently, and I get a whiff of, like, I'm not sure if it's decay, if it's just really stale dirt, like the kind of dirt you get from a graveyard. But then as the look to the door of it opening, that waft of scent comes in, I see a woman. She's in full black robes. Her face kind of shadowed from the hood that she remains up. Her spindly, kind of bony fingers, sort of, in a displayed and, Temple of Doom in front of her as she comes in, and I can sort of make out her eyes and face turning to look at the store. And my first impression, as I take note of the garments and whatever symbolism is upon her, this is a necromancer. And she's looking very excited as she sort of taps her fingers together and looks around before takes me in and gives a wide, toothy smile underneath her hood, her sort of long white hair all stringy and framing underneath her jaw. Like, "Oh, miss, I am so happy an apothecary's here. I could use some help if you don't mind." I'm just like, "Okay, sure. You know what? Sure. What can I help you with?" And she smiles like, "Oh, delightful. I need something to help, bring up the senses, if you get to my meaning. What specifically?" Well, I kind of hold my breath in anticipation of what she could possibly be asking here, waiting for requests. This as well. As you know. Well, maybe you don't know. Never mind. You don't know. I need a way to sniff out certain things. Like finding rot, if you don't mind. Just something to enhance that. Kind of like a bloodhound, if you kind of think of it that way. And I slowly nod. Yeah. Okay. I do have an aroma amplification draft recipe for sure. Okay, yeah, sure. Not gonna ask questions. Just give me a second here. Let me see what I got on the shelves. We're missing nothing. A lucky day. As I begin pulling out different things, to so enhance the senses. Let me see what ingredients we have. I find some of different things here. Okay, we don't need a sight enhancer, don't need an agility enhancer. We're looking at a scent enhancer, an ability. I pulled together a thread of the westerly wind at sea, and I put it to the side, make sure it's ready to use at the very end to amplify the aroma sensing ability of the pot of the brew. I throw in some yarrow and a bit of nettle. And then I fill it with a little bit of black rose oil, just to help enhance the transformation of the senses. And then as that bubbles and brews all together, I throw in the last bit of thread to create a cooling effect on the brew. And does it work? Yes, with some mixed results. So she said she was excitable, so that means a small batch. So, not that you need a lot, but for the necromancer, I create a very, very small batch of this aroma enhancing vial of liquid. And it does take the pale yellow form, and it has a mix of a bittersweet smell initially that shifts in different ways. As the necromancer excitedly looks it over. Like, so is there anything I have to be aware of? Any complications? I say, well, enhancing the smell can also mean smells can affect you and be overpowering. So if you are prone to migraines or allergies, this can make them even more intense. So be very careful when you intend to use it. And she sort of very gingerly plucks the vial, looks it over, and is like, oh dear, I know exactly how to be careful. Well, hopefully it works. I know it can be tricky, sort of magical things. Well, thank you, darling. And she places some coins on the table. It's like, if you ever need a necromancer's touch at all, well, I'll come by. And she pockets the vial with a smile. Like, and if I find this just does the exact opposite of what I wish, I'll be by. And then she pivots out as I sort of chill, like, oh no, I hope that works then. Ooh, next one is a jack of spades. So she leaves, and as I see her just at the end of the path, as I see her look and turn, as though to acknowledge somebody. And I catch in view a person coming up, sort of a little startled by her. Much older individual, very long hair that's in a mess. Half of it's up, the rest is sort of all scraggly down. Bright blue robes with embroidery of silver stars. And he sort of quietly nod at her with a lot of respect, as she turns and pivots off down the road the other way, and he comes in through the door. The bell jingles as I look to them, and I smile, and it's actually an astronomer from the castle, of all places. I recognize the emblem on their cloak, and I kind of look back out the door, and I do catch hint of like a horse that's there. Maybe there's some additional guards around, but the man comes in, and he's like, oh, miss, I had to come all this way. Is Astrid in? Like, oh, I'm sorry, she's away for the week, but I can help you. I rolled the wrong die for this. And he sort of nods, and my first impression of him sort of has an aloofness. So I don't really feel like I need to change any of my work in creating the potions. Just needs to be straightforward, follow the recipe. And he's like, oh, all right, well, I could, if you're an apprentice of her, then I suppose you'll have to do as I am urgent need. I need a potion to help, in resistance of something in particular. And I sort of nod along with him. I say, oh, okay, what do you need? I'm like, well, I'm an astronomer, and sometimes when you look up into the inky blackness of the skies, there's things you come across and illusions you see, a sort of eldritch depth in the dark. And I sort of nod along with him. It's like, well, I could use some resistance against these illusions. I don't need to pierce beyond the veil. I just need to interpret the stars. And am I doing that right? Is that astronomy or astrology? Astrono. You may turn into astrologist. Astronomy. No, he's just charting the stars. So it's like, I'm not an astrologist. I'm an astronomer. I chart the stars in the past, but I do see things up in the skies that can be a little harrowing. So I hope you can maybe make something to help resist against that. I'm like, oh, okay. I have a potion that I've made before. I think I can be a little better at it. So let me do that for you. So veil warding sounds like what you need. So as I go over the recipe, I find I'm just missing a common ingredient. Very easy to grab. It should be right out in the garden. So I quickly go out and I'm like, all right, just sit here. I'm going to step right outside in the garden here. Just need a fresh ingredient for this. Okay. And I rush out. I grab the ingredient that I need. No, nettle. Nettle has a warding property. So I grab some nettle and I rush back in and I throw it in the pot. Let it bubble a little bit in there with the liquid before I transfer and steep it all out. I immediately begin crushing up the additional ingredients and bring it back into the pot. A lot of back and forth as I'm now a little more confident into this. I think because I made it before, I'm going to roll with this with advantage. Why not? I'm making up my own rules. Disadvantages thing. I rolled 2 2s. No. Guys are mean to me. So I initially think, I'm confident. I can do this. I can do this. And then as I go, the man continues talking to me about everything. And I try and blank it out. And I catch words about like, oh, and life in the castle and, blah, 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 blah. And oh, there's the, big balls and blah, blah, blah. And he goes on about the castle life and his work and just distracting me that I don't notice the overboiling of the potion before it's a little too late, or my stirring is out of rhythm for what needs to be done to make this effective. And I finish it, I wrap it up, I put it in the bottle, I cork it. I say, well, I was being distracted. So this will only give you minor protection from the illusions you may see in the sky. Also, I'm not sure if it will help if the illusions are in the night sky as opposed to being in person around you. Yeah. And he sort of furrows his bushy brows a little bit. It's like, well, if it does not work, then I will return when Astrid can help me. I should have known. I should have just, the second you told me Astrid was gone, I should have waited for Astrid. And he sort of harumphs as he takes his potions, just like, well, we'll see how this does. If it works, then we may be back for your help. If not, we will just stick to Astrid. And he saunters out, and I give the biggest huff and sigh as I watch a carriage pull forward in front of the cottage and then back around as the next customer begins walking up the path. And who do we have? We have, getting to my list here, Queen of Hearts. Oh, damn. So, as I initially thought the carriage was turning fully around and leaving, a second carriage kind of pulls up behind it. And now the knights line up the path leading to my front door. It's like, whew. And I watch as a woman in a full gown wear in deep cerulean. Cerulean is a rare color that's very expensive. Deep cerulean gown, well fitted and flares, a well-kempt hair that's sort of piled tall, sort of half up with braids and little decorations of silver, looking like flowers and vines through it, and the rest sort of tumbling down her back. She steps out with the help of an escort and starts coming up the path. Very gingerly, very poised. Until she comes through my door and I realize my first impression of the queen is she is filled with joy. She has a great big smile. It's like, we are very delighted to come into your establishment, my dear. Our astrologer seems a little off-put, a little aloof about the place, but we are much, much excited. You sort of went in first to test the grounds, but we find ourselves just too in need until, you know. And she peruses the store a little bit as I very nervously, now in full sweat, stand there. Whew. I'm like, well, Your Highness, I am truly honored that you have stopped in. I'm afraid you have missed the Apothecaire, but I am her apprentice. I will do my best to aid you in whatever need you have. What is it that you need? And she sort of, dances her fingers along some of the plants and peruses over some of the cabinets that are encased. As she turns with a big smile towards me and says, well, my darling, we require something very important, something that requires hush. We heard of a thing that I am very much in need of. I think it's called Lover's Bane, and I sort of shiver a little bit. Lover's Bane is another thing to be known of it. In our recipes, main name for it is Venom Heart. Definitely an affliction potion used to curse an ex-lover. And yeah, I bristle. I'm like, well, Your Majesty, Lover's Bane, I can most certainly aid you. And I'm not even really looking at her. I'm just very much head down in respect. It's like, this is a very complicated potion you ask. It can go awry very easily. Are you sure? And as I sort of about to utter out the words, the queen laughs like, oh, my dear, we require under the most deepest discretion. I do not need to bore you with the politics of my court, but... And she sort of leans forward, still that wide, joyous smile on her face. Like, sometimes you need to put someone in line who is supposed to be a loyal love of yours. I just need to remind them. So can you be the sweetest of dears? Do this potion. And I believe that we may be able to reciprocate with, the utmost payment. Maybe we can help, I don't know, sponsor your supplies, or we may, help improve your homestead, or maybe we can open a shop in the castle district. Our town is very much lacking a good apothecary. We would very much love, if everything works as designed, to be able to employ you in a much closer capacity. Oh, the sweat is pouring off me as I nod. And... okay, I need a very specific vessel for this. And it is missing. Because we do not need it to look like the poison that she wants. Okay. All right, Your Highness, I will put together everything that we need. I'm missing a vessel I can put this in, though, that will help really tie it together. We don't want it to look like what you intend it to be. And she nods like, you are right. We don't want it to look out of place or odd. Something easy concealable, I think. Give me a moment. I'll see what is available amongst my accoutrement. But I hope you would have something. You would think with a quaint store such as this, you might have a vessel. Like, you know what, my queen, you are absolutely right. I can do a quick run into town. We have a brilliant smithing's guild that could help me with this. I can get you the most amazing vessel made. Let me go. make sure that's commissioned if they don't have it on hand. And I can immediately get to work on your potion. And she laughs like, oh, delightful, dear. Well, if you don't mind, we have come quite a long way. And we would much enjoy some time to relax. Like, oh yes, please. Feel free to utilize my space as I bring her into the kitchen area. Luckily, I've kept it pretty clean in between panics with customers. It is a little messy from last night because I stayed up so late. But I bring her in. A couple guards come in with her, and her hand comes in. I'm like, feel free to use the space as required. There's tea, and I put tea on the table for the hand and everything. Please utilize it as you need. Fruits, vegetables, whatever you need. And I'll be right back. And I immediately dart out, dashing down the road full speed, and breathless to the smiths getting commissioned on that vessel. And as they do that, I ask for someone to bring it because I have some very... No, it's got to be a secret. Never mind. Meet me halfway on the road at the crooked tree just by the end of the bridge. And I run back and I immediately begin working away on the potion. Luckily, all the other ingredients are there. It'd be very hard to get the special ones that make this a very potent lover's bane. And eventually I look at the time, like, all right, Your Majesty, I believe the vessel is supposed to be completed by now. I'm going to go meet them. I told them not to come. I'm going to go meet them, and I'll be right back. And she sort of laughs like, oh, of course, my dear. We are enjoying the rustic life. It's so quaint. And I go dashing down the road, and it's very much into the evening time, and I go and see the smith there, and he's looking pretty tired. It's like, well, I hope you have the money for this rush job, miss. I'm like, I do, and I will give you a tip if this job goes well. Thank you so freaking much. I can't tell you what it's about. It's best if you don't, okay? He sort of like nods. He's like, okay. And I take the vessel, and it looks like a perfume box. Something easy to put in the sleeve or on sort of one of those like hip chains that, you know, the kind of in the Victorian area, or even as like a clasp on a necklace. And I rush back and I immediately finish the last steps of the potion. I haven't done this one before. The Lover's Bane / Venom Heart. Let's be good for the queen. Nope. This is a failed potion, so, but I can't let the queen know that. So it's used for curse an ex-lover, a blend of tears of one whose heart has been broken, and the dried powder venom of a rare viper, deadly. Okay. I do note that I failed, so what the complications out of this is, not only is whatever individual she's throwing this on going to be jealous, but it's going to be overly so. I'm kind of thinking like, if you ever seen the movie Craft, you know, the original one, not the legacy one, and the main character does the spell to make her crush in love with her. I'm thinking it's like that kind of creepy extent, like them just going overboard. So he's not going to suffer the pains, like the sadness of it. They're just going to end up being kind of obsessed. But I give the queen her thing. Maybe it'll work in her favor. Maybe that's what she wants. Just any reaction to put them in any kind of pain. It doesn't even have to be the potion's initial, you know, intention that she believed. It could just be, you know, maybe potion work is just a mystery to the queen, and that's what I'm heavily relying on right now, because if the queen speaks ill of us, that could be the end of this shop and of Astrid's final thread of dreams, and I do not want to be responsible. So I flip it a little bit and I say, well, Your Majesty, the potion is done. Thank you so much for waiting. Side effects, just in case, because potion craft is very, very delicate, especially afflictions such as this. They could go from not just jealousy and pain, but they could be overly obsessed and clingy. So take it with a grain of salt, like not literally just. And she sort of laughs. So she's like, oh, dear, I'm sure as long as it doesn't affect that I require, if they do end up being clingy, I have solutions for that. But for now, and she sort of winks, is like, keep this between us girls, and we shall see what benefit comes through. And the guards make their way to the front. The hand prepares Her Majesty to leave, and I give a respectful bow to her, respectful curtsy as she exits the cottage, and I am there, a mess of a person, starting the day with a necromancer and ending with a queen. Astrid cannot come back soon enough. I didn't roll lore for anybody. I think I'm running out of questions, so I'll do one lore question for all this. So my question of lore is, are there any hot springs or communal outdoor spaces where the locals gather regularly to spread news or gossip? I mentioned there's a lake, so I imagine there's like a beautiful lake beachside. Some things I can be pretty craggy, but no, you can get lakes with beautiful beaches. I myself live near lakes with beautiful beaches. I actually live near one of the longest freshwater beaches. So there is a beautiful beach area with a beautiful trimmed park. It's sort of treated almost like festival grounds in a way for the local village. But when it's not used for festives, people tend to go for like the local gatherings, any games or any sort of stuff like that. And people will talk about news and all the sorts of things. Just everything. It's where people walk and gather and talk. But for I'll say our week is 6. Let's end it on our 6th day here. Astrid comes in the morning. So we have 3 customers again. And the first customer that comes in the morning, oh damn. I read what that one is ahead of time, as I read the queen. Am I right? No, I'm not right. It is someone else. Okay. So I open up the shop, and as I go and reorganize the shelves, I hear the dinging of the bell and turn, and I see a woman very dressed ostentatiously, like full of golds. She has gold in her makeup, gold trimmings in her hair, gold framed half moon glasses, gold necklaces and rings, and is sort of my first impression of her as she saunters in. She has a very nostalgicness to her. Like she's just someone who's popped off from like a paint illumination from a book. Just that look in her dress and wear. And immediately I recognize, oh, this is a goldsmith. And maybe the royal goldsmith? She's going to require a very special golden vessel. But she comes in, gives a wide brim, kind of a wide smile. She's like, oh dear, I'm so glad you are here. I could use some assistance. And I sort of nod like, oh, of course. Exactly what I'm here for. What do you need? Like, oh, I could use a little bit of clarity for a situation. Yeah. Some foresight into an event. No, not foresight. just something that helps me really see an event that is happening. You see, I am meant to craft some gifts for Her Majesty, for a party coming in, and I just want to be able to read the reactions and know that what I've made is appropriate. It's, and I kind of nod, and I'm like, yeah, I wish I had that too. Like, I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you mean. It looks like you need an elixir of farseeing. And she sort of nods like, okay, that will help me. I'm like, it helps to see an event that is happening in the present moment. So if you're looking to see what is happening, how to read your people in the moment when you give the gifts, that is what you need. It's like, all right. So I quickly go over everything. And again, I'm missing the vessel, which this person needs a very particular vessel. I'm just like, oh, goodness. Okay. I have the ingredients, but the appropriate vessel is missing. I invite you to sit in the garden. I'm just going to run to town. I know the exact shop I can buy the perfect vessel from. She says, all right, dear. Do you happen to have any like tea or snacks while I'm waiting? Like, oh, of course. And I drag out some tea today. It is a saffron tea. And I got little like cinnamon biscuits, and I also pull out like a tome, a book on what I think could work for her. So I pick out a book that is about different metals used for fireworks. She might find that interesting, right? So I bring her to the garden and sit her down. I'm like, I'll be right back. It will only take me a little bit. And yeah, I will come and get you when everything's ready. It's like, all right, dear. She sips the potion, and I go once again running down the road into the village. I look for the jewelers, not the blacksmith, the jewelers, because this person needs gold, something with gold inlay, I feel, if not gold itself. And I pop into the jewelers explaining like a potion bottle or anything. They sort of nod along, and they point out a couple of different vials, and out of the potion bottles that they will do. Oh, maybe when I mention potion bottles, they direct me to the potion maker. I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And I dash back out and go into the potion maker. So I come back. I'm like, actually, could you make... No, never mind. I got it. And I run back out. And I go into the potion maker, and I just explain I need to look at their bottles. I don't need any, or not potion, perfume. I don't need any of the perfumes. I just need like an empty vial or like a bottle. It doesn't need to be a squirty bottle, just like a dipper bottle. And they present the selection, and it takes me a little bit to pick out the perfect one. I find one. It is metal of gold and silver, so it has, or gold and platinum. So it's platinum with gold inlays, and glass through the middle of it, and a gold topper on a sort of golden chain. And I'm like, okay, perfect, that's it. And I grab it, and I rush back. It's now an hour later. I'm huffing and puffing, and I put this away, and I go back inside, and I start pulling the ingredients of every single thing that I need. And I begin preparing and brewing and crafting and stirring. And it is successful, but with some mixed results of unexpectedness. So as I put the final cork in the bottle, the goldsmith comes in with the cup and the book, and they're like, oh, good, did you just finish? I say, oh, yes, I was about to call you. I finished it, it's right here. Yes. And she comes in, she places the cup and book on the counter next to me, and pulls out her purse, starts counting out gold coins bit by bit. It's like, all right, well, here's payment. She takes the bottle. It's like, anything I should know? Well, there will be just that strong taste of cinnamon and orange. And she sort of laughs like, oh, so the cinnamon cookies were just a sampler of what to expect. Like, yes, yeah, yes. And, though it can help you see an event happening in the present moment. It can also cause you to see multiple things, multiple events happening, so be aware. It could potentially see more than just the reactions of people around your gifts. And she nods. It's like, all right, I guess it could be difficult to narrow down a target for an event. And I nod. I'm like, yes, you are absolutely correct. And she puts the vial away. It's like, well, thank you, dear. Hopefully this works out. I know potion work can be tricky, as is gold work can be tricky. It's all an art and a science. Have a good day. And she walks on out. Oh, that's a fun art. I haven't seen that one. Sort of like a jackalope with a mermaid. But this one, now that I read the Goldsmith, this is the one I thought it was, but now it is. The goldsmith walks out and I see another horse-drawn carriage and I immediately panic thinking it's the queen. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. No, something went wrong, something happened. She's gonna want to take me in and behead me. Maybe she's gonna behead me here. Oh no, oh no, 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 no. But as I kind of panic running through my store, I look out the window and I see not the queen stepping out, but a man. He wears, that similar regal robes in the bright colors that only those of money can afford. And there is a notable crown on his head. My first impression of him is very nostalgic, like the woman that just came in. He is practically inlaid in golds and metals himself, lots of embroidery, damask patterns, almost obnoxiously so. And he has just that air of just presence, like he's here. But his guards step ahead of him up to the door. His hand opens the door as he comes in, full beard with some braiding and gold clasps on the ends. And he regards the shop. He nods. I give a deepest bow and wait for him to acknowledge me. And oh my goodness. And he looks to me like, Apothecary, are you Astrid? And sort of sweat on brow. And, no, your majesty, but I am her apprentice. How may I help you this day? And he sort of nods and regards me, and he walks to the table. And he says, well, unfortunately, we are in no mind to be patient for her return. We could use some work and service now. And I nod as the nervousness jitters through my body. Like, of course, Your Highness. How may I be of service? How can I help you? Look upon me, apprentice. And I look up and it says, regard my our features. Regard the silver of my beard, the tired, weathered lines of my face. I wish to perceive time, not just the turning of the clock, but the very threads of fate, of past and future, and maybe change the course of where they go. My eyes sort of widen. Majesty, what you're asking is a rather complicated thing. It was like, but based on your words, it's possible. Sort of dart my eyes a little bit, and I pull up the tome. And I flip through the pages, and I find the recipe. It's written in the old hand of someone long before Astrid. Kronos Nectar. I sigh as I place a hand on the page. Well, Your Majesty, this is incredibly difficult if we don't have this ingredient in the shop. I don't know if I can make this for you. He sort of nods his head in acknowledgement. Well, take the time you need to visit the ingredients list. We shall be here if you find you cannot do this ask. Well, we shall see. And he sort of wanders the little shop a little bit as I panically grab the list of ingredients and flip through. And like trying to stifle the most relieving sigh. There is nothing missing. I have all the ingredients. I have the right vessel. And I pull out the vessel, which is a shape of an hourglass. I put it down. And I begin to pull the ingredients. And I open the secret cellar door behind in the kitchen as I let the king know, like, we have the ingredients, but there's one I have to go grab. I close it and I tiptoe down the stairs into the cellar and into the hidden back door. And I pull up a small box of the key ingredients, the very sands of times themselves. Astrid has yet to tell me exactly how she has obtained these. But this is the very thing that allows one to perceive the threads of time. I dart back up the stairs and begin measuring out what I need, carefully close the box and hide it away so that I may put it away properly later. And I go back out to the front. I bow to the king, saying, I have the ingredients, I just need to do my work. And he gives a big smile, was like, perfect. Well then, Apothecaire Apprentice, I shall allow you to work. I'll be out in my carriage. And he steps out the shop. And I guess to make sure I'm not disturbed, his guards put the sign to close and stand there. And I quickly make work, trying to follow the steps as clearly as I can, trying to not let the nerves stop or interrupt any particular. Oh, maybe it's hearing just Astrid's voice in my head telling me every step. Maybe it is a focus that I'm coming in. Maybe I had a bit of taste of that far-seeing potion elixir that I gave the goldsmith earlier. Just, hotboxing it. But as I put the final touches of the potion and begin to pour sort of the velvety sands into the hourglass vessel, that appearance of the churning of sands and dunes underwater appear within it. And immediately I know this is successful. I cork it, the base turned and latched shut. I shake it a little bit to make sure no sands rattle out. And I floated a little bit, seeing that golden grit in the viscous fluid. And it's almost dreamlike to see. But I go to the door and tap on the glass as the guard turns to regard me. And I give a nod. And he nods and goes to the king's carriage, in which the king comes back. Well, I knew Astrid's apprentice must be of some grit to be able to achieve this. And my face flushes. Like, well, your majesty, potion is of success. I was able to make it as you requested. And I present it to him, and he smiles wide. Says, you may have very well saved this kingdom, apprentice. As he hands it to his hand, and they put it away in a special box. King puts a big bag, or not the king, the hand then puts a big bag on the table, and I hear the jingling of coin. More coin than I've ever heard in one go in a bag. The king says, you have pleased us most tremendously. And for your service, we will make sure that you are well kept as a service to the kingdom. And of course, we will speak with your mentor to make sure that you are well rewarded for your efforts of caring for the shop and addressing our needs. And I give a curtsy, a bow. It's like, thank you, your majesty. And he nods in approval. For the future, potentially we will see you in our castle for a festivities. And he leaves, followed by the guards in his hand, and they all go off. Our final card. I am not doing, I'll do lore question at the end of everybody. 8 of diamonds. 8 of diamonds. Gotta get back to my table. We have, as the cart goes away, a individual, kind of androgynous, can't really tell of gender. They're just layers and layers of fabric of varying colors. Some of it kind of dyed, others sort of look like it's bleached. Various things going on, just all wrapped up. Full head covering. They come darting up the path, sort of like back, doubling back with their looks. My first impression of them, as they're sort of coming up the path, is they're looking rather nervous. Maybe it was just because of the things they just witnessed. But they come through the door as I just flip the sign back open after the king has left. And I go, hi, could I'm looking for some help. I was told, I thought maybe Apothecaire would have what I need. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. And I'm beaming because I've had a great potion session for the king. I did well. I got exactly what I needed out of it. Everything's fantastic. So I smiled at the person like, okay, what is it exactly that you need? Like, well, I've always heard you can sort of augment things, you know, and I just need some sort of deep inspiration. You know, I've been trying to get into the dreamscape, you know, like, sometimes you just see really deep and immersive things as you dream, and they give me a lot of ideas, but I can't hold on to them. The second I wake up, they just disappear. So maybe if I had a way to augment it to give me some lucid dreams, I might be able to hold on to it better. And I nodded along, and I'm like, all right, just a second. I think I have something for that. And I flipped through the book, and yes, I do have something for that. I happen to have a Vivid Dreams draft. And the dyer nods along as they discuss that they, you know, dye clothes with petals and liquids and oils and various things. They're like, oh, okay, that sounds exactly what I need. Vivid Dreams. I'm like, okay, just give me a second here. This requires a very specific flower. Let me make sure it is here. Nope. The Dream Bloom flowers, we haven't reached the season for them yet. So we haven't been able to harvest them. And I sort of look at the calendar and maybe the other herbalist might have them. So I may have to go into town and see about the herbalist that does it for food. And I kind of regret having to speak with that woman again. But yeah, just hang around. You're free to sit in the garden. It's a nice day. I just have to go find these Dream Bloom flowers. And should be good to go. They sort of nod or like, oh, okay, perfect. Yes, okay, I'm willing to wait. I'm willing to wait. Cool. And they sort of just sit in the garden without me really saying anything more, but I do bring out some tea and biscuits for them. Like, just relax. I'll be back. And for another time, I go darting off into town. I look for the local herbalist. I ask them if they have any Dream Bloom flowers. They say, nope. I just happen to do more of the common variety, cooking herbs. Oh, okay. Shit. And I dash back out thinking, okay. Dream Bloom flowers. They bloom in a grove. They bloom under moonlight because night means dream. Okay. And I run back to the cottage and I tell the dyer, okay, bad news. No flowers are in town. No Dream Bloom flowers I need are in town. However, I am going to seek out the grove where they grow to see if maybe they are early in blooming. We have a particular spot that we know of. It'll just take me some time. Do you happen to live in town? They sort of nod along. We're like, oh, yeah, I do. Like, okay, perfect. Just, you can go home, relax. And I will get this potion made. I promise. I just need time. I need to wait until nightfall because that's when the Dream Bloom flowers bloom. They kind of nod along as I'm sort of jittering and spouting off. They're like, oh, okay, I'll just go then. And they kind of scurry back into town. I'm like, okay, another late night it is, and I gotta make sure everything's clean before Astrid comes back. Perfect. The roller coaster of emotions this whole week. So I just close the shop and I clean everything to the best of my abilities. I prepare all the other ingredients, especially the lavenders, as I sort of use it as a base to help imbue the Dream Bloom flowers, and prepare my stuff, get my lantern. And as night is about to hit that dusk point, not just night, but that dusk point, I move out into the dim light of evening, go directly for the grove that Astrid has pointed out to me before, where she's collected the Dream Bloom flowers, and I sit there and I sort of wait. And eventually, as the sunlight dissipates, just at that very brink of a moment, there's a moment where there's a glow to the flowers and a subtle bloom. They're not as big as I wanted, as this person needs a very large batch for the time that they want to spend in their lucid dreams. But I go at it what I can, try not to damage the blooms and trying to keep other flowers there to harvest later. And quickly I make it back home and I work on it through the night. Let's see if I can achieve a potion that works. I do! As I work tirelessly, turning the petals into an oil as I sift them, and then once all the oil is out, I powder out and dry and then powder the remaining petals and sort of bring it all back together in a boil and a strain, and then remains is a sort of shimmering iridescence, a coloring shift from one to the other in a dance of hypnotic, mesmerizing way. I take a breath. The sort of shimmeringness of it holds the vessel. And I go out into the night and I find the sign in town that says dryer. And of course, everything's dark. Everyone has gone to bed. But I do see a light in the upper portion above the shop, and I knock on the door, progressively getting louder until eventually someone pops their head at the window, and I wave up and sort of open the window a crack, like, oh, I'll be right down, as they seem to recognize me. And eventually the shop door opens and they say, oh, you finally finished it. I'm like, it took a very long time to get the flowers, but here. And I present the vessel. I'm like, maybe try just a little bit now. If you go back to sleep, don't take a whole lot because you could end up sleeping for a very, very long time. And yeah, just little bits. And they nod and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And they pull out some coin and put in my hand and move on. As they close the door, and I find myself wandering back through the night as the very morning rays of sun start to crest over the mountains. Let's answer one last lore question of the world. What's one that I like here? Let us say, tone down the music. Is there a nightly order established here? I think there is. We just don't have necessarily a night directly in this village, as we are small. I think they probably are at the bigger village nearby. It sort of leads in towards the castle and the bigger like city. So there is nights. There is nights, but they tend to stay more to like the bigger castle areas, as you don't really operate in a fiefdom in any way. They're sort of just specialized, I guess, lords without being called lords, like given the same sort of lands and ownership as lords and ladies. Just they're knights with their own sort of part of land that the lords establish or give upon them. That is our week, as I wake up in the morning, forcing myself up. And after a very challenging week, I hear the clicking of what sounds like keys in a lock as I'm preparing a morning brew of tea, and the opening of a door and the jingle. I poke my head around and I see there is Astrid. And she closes the door and locks it again and turns back around and gives a nod of approval, seeing the shop is clean. Like, oh, well, you didn't burn the place down while I was gone. That's good. Now let's have some breakfast and discuss what went down this week, yes? As she shuffles in through the doorway and in through the store. Like, oh, good, you brewed my favorite tea. Like, yeah, of course. I wasn't sure when you'd be back, but I think I was going to brew it all day regardless. And she smiles as she comes to the kitchen space and sits down. We go over the progress of the week. I've had a number of struggles, but she just laughs. She's like, you know what? That honestly, a similar experience to my first week myself when I was apprenticing. She sort of laughs at the complication with the man-turned chimera satyr. Like, it honestly sounds like he would be stuck like that for the week based on how you made it. And I sort of blush. I'm like, oh dear, no. But she is very pleased I was able to make the king happy. I was like, no, my family's had ties to the royal court. We sort of moved out here to avoid the politics of it all. But sometimes we do get members through that kind of whisper of stories in history. They like to pop by. So you did well to impress them. And again, blush, full red face. Like, oh, okay, well, both him and the queen are happy to She sort of taps the book where I wrote down what the queen, like what I used for the queens. Like, I know what this is. That's going to be interesting. Hopefully what she wanted isn't for the king. And I sort of wide-eyed like, oh. Like, oh, don't worry. I'm sure it's just one of her lovers. The queen honestly has many lovers, and if they ever upset her, she gets very vicious. Like, oh, she just seems so pleasant. Like, well, she is very pleasant when you don't upset her. And we exchange the pleasant conversations and talk about what has gone through the shop and what the apothecary has gone through on her trip. As we close the scene of the pair chatting in the kitchen as we pull out, and our story ends here. Ah, that was a long run. We're at nearly an hour and a half. Just about to cross that threshold. Yay! So that was fun. That is the Apothecaire's Apprentice, coming to Kickstarter November 1st. This was an early preview of the game. Things that were played and brought up and the prompts and stuff may change by the time the Kickstarter is done and this game is in the hands of the players and people that support it. So be aware. Things can change from the time that I played as playtesters go through and give feedback and the like. So if you are interested in playing this game yourself, well, you have to support the Kickstarter. So make sure the command code in Twitch here is Apprentice, if I can type it right. I did not type it right. Give me a moment. I'm throwing it in chat here and then in VOD on YouTube. In the description down below, there will also be a link. If by chance you are watching this way after the Kickstarter, well, go look up Lionne Publishing or Lionne Cosplay on Twitter and find links to all of her stuff. She's got games and things. So make sure you do that. Again, the art used for this game is also by me. It was from my stock art pack, Herbalisms and Potions, that sort of inspired everything. Even on the screen here, the little ink drawing point other direction. There we go. Above the play space is mine. So yeah, all the art you'll see through that is my art. And there's going to be special stretch goals. One of them that I've discussed with Anya is me doing a unique artwork to be used as either a postcard or a poster for a stretch goal. So if you want to see original art done, I can get as that. Make sure you do go sign up for the Kickstarter, be notified about the launch, then support it when it launches. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this little adventure as a assistant to the apothecary. My throat is very dry after all that talking. I should have taken a break. I'm bad for not doing that. And yeah, thank you so much for stopping by for this special solo game night. Of course, we'll have more solo games in the future. And if you're a game designer who would like to see your game played, well, if you need it in time for a Kickstarter or other crowdfunding platform, I'm more than happy to stream it. Otherwise, I am hoping to do more as a pre-recorded videos for the future. I'm taking time to adjust everything between, you know, the fall and Christmas and winter holidays. So in the new year, reach out. Let me know. I do have a list of everything that I want to play, but when you reach out to me, lets me know, hey, this wants to be seen, so let me do this for you, and I love playing games. But I think that's it for me. It is getting late. It is past midnight for moi. So whatever time it is for you, day, night, evening, whatever it is, may be a good one. Remember to hydrate. Remember to take your medications. Remember to sleep and rest and do whatever you need to maintain yourself and have a healthy day, because you don't want to be to a point where you need a health potion. And I will see you next time. Bye.